The Legend of Zelda, Hylian Hearts. Demise Initiative. A peaceful day in the life of Hylian Hunter, surrounded by fat trees in front of an ancient and abandoned forest temple while lazily lying in a meadow clearing with his horse out to graze. Clad in a traditional hunter's green tunic, 3 empty bottles tied to his belt and a 4th with a blue liquid inside. His bow and quiver laying against a small stump, sturdy Hylian shield face up in the grass beside him. A sudden and unexpected, small but loud voice calls out from the ether, "Link!" The hunter's eyes snap open at the sound as he sits up to locate the direction it came from. "Link! Link, we need your help!" He couldn't see anyone, and Epona seemed entirely unaware of the outburst. "Am I hearing things?" he wondered silently, lending a hand to his ear and looking and cocking his head. He didn't hear it anywhere, but intensely heard it directionless. "Link, the goddesses beckon us. Please hurry to Hyrule Castle. I am Zelda, Princess of Hyrule. You must make haste." It felt unreal, but the feel of her words convinced him to listen and to obey. Not to obey her, but the intense feeling of necessity, like that which one obeys when starving. Equipping the sword and shield while he sat, he immediately hopped to his feet and scooped up the bow and quiver, shouldering the quiver in one fluid motion, then whistled sharply for Epona. Mounting his horse, he looked back at the stump briefly, properly equipping the quiver and stowing his bow with it. Pya! Before turning and quickly riding off. Forgotten memories belonging to an unknown parallel consciousness started flooding his mind. A flash in his memories caused him to falter, briefly losing balance, but he corrects himself and rides on. He closed his eyes and tried to steady his breath. The forest was thin where he had made his day rest area, but quickly thickened as he rode into the shadows of the lost woods. Hyah! Faster, hoping he was fast enough. The feel of her words, as if shot in the heart by an arrow. Hyah, yeah! Seeping images and memories come flowing out of him like life essence, impacting his heart with oddly misplaced feelings of guilt, confusing his memories of the simple hunter's life. Eternally young children. No. Friends? He rode hard and fast, through a giant hollow log, past a curious masked skull kid, out of the forest edges, into the vast open fields of Hyrule. A skull kid? Link's eyes blinded white and he nearly fell off his horse as the thought of a memory he'd never had struck hard in his head, tears pouring down his cheeks from an unfelt pain, a friendship never before experienced moment in his youth. That needs editing. Eastward for an hour still, to the abandoned ranch, before he would go north, toward Hyrule City, to where he was being pulled, tugged, coursed, intended, and guided from all the heartfelt necessity he could have ever known. The glint of a memory, an ocarina, an old friend of the forest, a Kokiri girl, the master sword. Somewhere between the forest edge and the entrance of Lon Lon Ranch, Link had drifted into wondrous adventures against a giant unheard-of Dodongo, trading eye drops with a huge-sized Goron, and saving the daughter of the King of Zoras. Fighting great evil. Someone he could clearly see from his every nightmare but never recognized, and then a name he'd never heard but always felt. Ganondorf. Pangs of blinding guilt began twisting his memories again as the name caught a thread of recognition. Link spurred his horse with his boot, "Hyah!" half screaming in agony. The drawbridge was down, and 2 guards were out lighting the torches, an hour before the sun began to reach toward the horizon. Link rode past without concern, fast through the archway into the market square. He did not bother slowing for the citizens. He rode directly toward the castle, nearly colliding with a red-headed maiden on the way. More mixed memories of never-before-experienced lifetimes, a wife and children, a glorious, heroic secret stripped of him through time and space, his only companion connecting him, gone and disappeared. His soul bound to physical form for generations, so to teach his own descendant all that he had mastered as a hero? No, the hero of time. The pain intensified as he reconnected with himself, a self he'd always felt and never known. Nearing the castle, as he tried to blink away the tears, an ominous dark cloud spiraling over and around Death Mountain came into view, coagulating down the hillside, dispersing past unseen Kakariko beyond the hills, and hazed sideways above the cathedral behind him, before pulling straight toward the castle gates, where dozens of guards were evidently fighting something huge, as they were thrown into the skies and cast aside like dolls. As he grabbed his bow, Link dismounted and drew aim into the crowd of guards, hesitated at the intensity in which his heart suddenly jumped, for such a fraction of a moment, then unleashed an arrow, already feeling he was too late in releasing it. Within a split-second reaction as the arrow drew upon its target, a neon and dark-like black wave shattered. A dark and neon-like black wave shattered the arrow and fanned out toward Link, the dark wave smashing him in the chest, toppling him to the ground and knocking the wind out of him, had collided with the energy he felt in his heart. The intensity of this overwhelming sensation was unbearable. He fell unconscious in his struggle to endure the blow. A quiet whinny, whimper, and thud permeated the blackness that surrounded his failing consciousness. Link, like a soft song note, awaken, came forth a soft, melodic, caring voice. Link felt something cool press against his forehead, and he opened his eyes. The faint, flickering light was dim, but still caused him to squint. A beautiful woman with long, rusty golden hair smiled down on him, pressing the rag to his head, breathing calm and speaking so soft. He knew right away that she was the princess. He didn't need to see her elegant dress or intricate royal family jewelry and Triforce crests. The voice he had heard in the meadow was no different than hers, though sterner back then than she spoke now, speaking as gently as felt her hand that held the cool rag. Until he opened his eyes. The gentleness of her voice was easy to become accustomed to, as he already had. But that comfort shattered when her familiar frightened sternness returned, albeit with not a trace of the former fear, but seemingly a magical courage. "Good," she said, almost hurriedly. "You're awake. Please, listen closely. Hyrule's fate may well rest in our hands," she began. "You and I have been chosen by the goddesses Nehru and Furor to protect Hyrule from a tremendous evil, a man who has stolen the royal family's greatest treasure, the Triforce." Pausing to wring out the damp rag and return it to Link's forehead, she continued. "Long ago, at the discretion of the goddess of time, the three goddesses Din, Furor, and Nehru were permitted to create our world and breathe their own unique life into it. They created our world and all of us in it. We Hylians, the Shiaka, the Zoras, the Gorons, Gerudo, Kokiri, Dekus, Wolfos, everything. And when their works were complete, as they ascended back into the heavens, their spent energies, following contrails of the presence of the goddesses, coalesced, and whereupon they met, formed into the Triforce, a single fused set of three brilliant, luminous golden triangles, said to grant their wishes in the hearts of any whom lay claim to it," she continued. "The royal family has forever charged itself with the protection of that sacred treasure." Her voice began to crack, and she became choked up. Looking away as a tear escaped, just in time to be flung aside by the momentum of her head, it spat upon Link's cheek to his surprise. He sat up and continued listening intently. Zelda drew a long and steady breath, stepping away to give him room. "Today I came of age, and I learned of part of the legend never before told to me or my people." Her voice still cracked, choked, but clearing up. "Whence the three goddesses had completed their works and returned to the goddess of time, they were immediately sent back as punishment for the wrongdoings of their own creations." She took another breath to calm herself and continued. They were instructed to forge the weapons that would vanquish all evil wrongdoers in Hyrule. This part of the legend is taught in the cathedral, which was once the Temple of Time and acted as the entrance to the sacred realm where the 3 golden triangles rested, protected. She paused awkwardly. Link. She drew an uncertain breath, but could not turn to face him. Link, I tell you this because I have never seen you in Hyrule before. A slow pause put Link in an uneasy mood. I know you are the one who can help us, even if I can't explain it properly. But because Nehru has chosen me for the Triforce of Wisdom, I now bear its mark, and that's why I know you have the Triforce of Courage. The Triforce of Courage resonated with this truth and began glowing on Link's hand, in sync with Zelda's. He raised the back of his hand to look at it, as Zelda continued. Somehow, she came to me even before everything happened, reminding me of the royal family's duty. A quiet sob emanated from her throat as she tried to choke it down and continue. Nehru explained to me the difference between Hylia and the 3, that Hylia gave them free will and made them her honorary sisters, as long as they agreed to use their powers strictly in the realm of Hyrule and its associated sacred realm. I didn't understand, and when I tried to explain it to my father, she tried to steady her shaky breath and calm herself. Sadly, we failed to uphold our honor. The Royal Family Council decided it was best to have the previous generation of sages keep the Triforce in our own vaults beneath the castle, and had the former head sage, Raruru, transport the Triforce from the temple. But never had we considered a thief from the desert to become an evil wizard. She sighed at herself with disgust. I fought, as a girl, with my visions of him and his darkness. Saw a young boy with a fairy who would save us all, but he never came. Even Link could feel her heart surged, and even more tears fell from her eyes. As she reached up to wipe them away, he couldn't prevent them from falling down his own cheeks. She paused, sniffled, then drew a breath and spoke somewhat more confidently. Yet I now know, thanks to Nehru, I know him to be you. You are the one from my dream who is destined to be the hero of time. She turned back and looked Link deep in his eyes and almost gasped, noting how wet his eyes were. She hesitated for only a hiccup, but pressed on. The goddesses created the Ocarina of Time and the Master Sword to give a hero ample power to protect the Triforce, but there is a third weapon made for dire circumstances, a weapon so powerful and complex that the goddess of Time herself had to craft it with the help of the other goddesses. An armored tunic made by Nehru, and with the ability to sheathe the ultimate weapon forged by both Farore and Din, the one which surpasses even the Master Sword. The walls shook, expanded, contracted, seemingly breathing, interrupting Zelda, and the world around them faded away to smoky swirls of dull color which slowly took on the form of a grim and terrifying face. Ganondorf. Ah, there's my bride. You will not resist the evil king, young wench. A dark, glowing crystal prison formed around Zelda, instantly inducing a trance upon her and lifting her up several feet. And you, the voice boomed, as bright, electrified light began to accumulate around his visage. I know why she called you to her, and I plan to vanquish you here and now. This declaration seemed to bring Zelda back to life, who immediately summoned a brilliant blue light which shattered the prismatic prison. She landed gracefully and stood indomitably before walking intently forward, toward an intricate panel with 3 hollow slots. Ganondorf Dragmire, leave this sacred place! And with all her power, Zelda sealed herself and Link, several feet behind her, of brilliant magical light, revealing that they were inside the cathedral, the former Temple of Time. Her magic seemed to blow the charged light and smoky shadows away into swirls of clear air. Link, there's no longer enough time. Take this and retrieve the Master Sword. She threw the Ocarina of Time at Link, continuing, Ganon will claim me now, but you can still end this. Go back in time and find the other 6 sages. With them, help us bind him forever. Then extended her magical barrier toward the pedestal of time, forcing the monolithic doors of time open with her own magic and filling nearly all of the cathedral with Nehru's love. She was exhausting herself too fast, sweating hard and suffocating, and Link saw it. He dashed for the sword, running with his every last trace of effort and energy. Upon unsheathing the sword, radiant red, blue, and green magical energies engulfed him, just as the King of Evil appeared in a dark crimson-black explosion of smoke. Link swung the Master Sword with great might, blasting the energies out as a magical wave upon the intruder. Sidestepping the blast as it was swallowed up by the smoke that he had traveled through, Ganondorf angrily addressed Link, voice booming and causing the ceiling to collapse. "This ends now, boy." As his eyes turned to a dark neon crimson and neon-like purple and black smoky energy emanated from his core. Link lunged at him, driving the sword into Ganondorf's heart, but when he stepped away, only a phantom stood